Welcome back to the channel. This game features Nigel's last game in the chess Olympiad in Greece in 1984. His opponent was the Serbian Grandmaster Marjanovic, a quite strong Grandmaster. The game started as a Sicilian defence, and a Najdorf variation. And then Nigel plays knight to d5. The threat is bishop to b6, followed by knight to c7 check. So black defends, and then white defends the pawn. Bishop side steps, and both sides just developing. Pressure on the c pawn. Both sides getting ready to castle, which neither of them truly does. And then hits in the centre to try and stake a claim in the centre. Pawns are traded. And here black plays knight to e5. Maybe a bit premature, maybe castles. And knight to d4, then knight to e5, b3, and queen to c7. Would have been a safer play for black. The position's quite equal. He plays knight to e5, which potentially would give white a bit of an advantage, which Nigel missed. He played knight to d4, but in his position he could have played c5, and the idea is to open up the attack on the a pawn. So after the a pawn, and knight to a5, heading for c6, and white has a nice position. Obviously the rook's attack, so needs to move so the bishop can't be taken. And white would have a nice position in this variation. But Nigel opted for knight to d4, which is a solid move. Bring the knight into the centre, and black castles. b3 to shore up the c pawn, and both players just getting the rooks into the centre, and bishop to f6 to increase the scope of the black bishop. King to h1, always a good move in this sort of position to get out of any potential checks and off of the open black diagonal. Bishop g3, putting more pressure on the knight, and black hits the queen, which sidesteps to b7. So the game is very even at this point. Black just connects rooks, and queen to a3, maybe a slightly dubious move from Nigel. Obviously attacking the a pawn, but would allow h5 with a potential pawn storm. Obviously h5, h4, and black would have some attacking chances on the king side. But he plays a5, which creates a backward b pawn, and I think definitely h5 would have been the better option. So the queen comes back after doing its job, and black threatens to double the pawns. Here Nigel plays knight to f3. Maybe not the right square for the knight. I think knight to b5 would have been a better move, more active. And after, say, bishop to e3, sort of getting back to c5. And knight to g4 on the exchange. I think white would have had a nice position in this position. He's got a nice active knight on b5, pressure on the d pawn, and would be quite a nice position. I think knight to f3 was slightly passive and would allow the trade of knights at the right point, which actually would be this point. Black didn't. Black played bishop to f6, defending the knight, discovered attack on the queen. But I think knight takes f3 would have been a better try. And then bishop to e3 to get onto the nice diagonal, and then double rooks. And black would have a nice position. Certainly would be no worse. But he plays bishop to f6, and obviously Nigel has to move the queen. And black doubles the rooks. Again, still knight takes knight. Might be advantageous for black. But now after the rook moves, he puts pressure on the e3 square and the f2 square with the knight on g4. Nigel opts to tries to trade bishops, and the knight duly hops into e3 with tempo. Rook to c1. The bishops are traded, and queen to g4. And black's building up a little bit of head of steam. He's just getting his pieces more active. And white really isn't doing anything. He's sort of scrambling around, trying to hold the position. Hitting knight to f5 is played, which I think kind of loses a little bit of the thread of the position. I think bishop g5 is the only move that would keep black's advantage. And after knight takes, queen takes, rook e2, and then knight to f5, and the queen's traded. I think it's probably an equal position where black still has chances, but it may be drawn. But knight to f5 kind of gives white a slight chance. But again, even then, the position is still quite even. Threatening obviously mate on g2, so white has to eliminate the knight. After a few trades, and bishop to g5 hitting the queen. Again, black's got a slightly better position, but it's drawn. But after this move, I think white decides starts to lose the thread or the position. I mean, queen to d1 is very passive and allows bishop to e3. I mean, queen to d4 would have been perfectly playable, and after a variation like this, the game's fairly even. Trade's going to happen, and the game will end up a draw. But yeah, that's bishop to e3, and now there's beginning to get a little bit of pressure against the white position. He tries to pin the bishop, but f5 going to f4 is a good move. Queen to d3 hitting the bishop, and white plays queen to e4. I think queen to f4 would have been a better move. Opting to keep the trade, keep the queens on. White trades the queens, and then probably makes them the worst move of the game. It's not easy to see, but the best move is g4. And after f takes g4 and knight to h4, white is quite active, and the bishop's still pinned. And most of black's advantage is gone at this point, even though he's a pawn up. But g3 allows black play. I mean, the best move in the position is king to f7, which he didn't play, which obviously bringing the king into the centre. He plays g5 first, and then king to g2, and then king to f7. But you can see that white's starting to run out of moves. He's in a very passive position, and the queen side's completely locked down, and the only way he can say the only person who's going to win the position is black. So the king carries on forward, and Nigel tries to dance around with his knight, probably heading to c2, and black offers a trade of rooks, and Nigel decides to take it, but I think this is losing. He's going to run out of moves. His knight is dreadfully passive, and the black bishop controls the position. The king's going to come into e5 and then d4, and there's not much you can do to stop it. This is a clever move from black as well, just offering the b pawn for this d pawn. Even if white takes it, which is actually the best move according to the engine, um, his position is clearly hopeless. So the pawns are traded at a4, and white is now generally running out of moves. He's in Zugzwang, or not quite yet, but he will be soon. And out of desperation, Nigel decides to check and trade off the knight. But after king to e5, now white is in Zugzwang. Whatever he moves here, he's going to lose material. He opts for g4, h4, but after takes an a3. Black now has a position, and he basically, whatever white plays in this position, he's going to lose material. Plays c5, and d takes c5, d6. Pawns are traded, but now black's pawn up a past c pawn, which he can push, and then duly go and win the h pawn. A good game from black. I'm not sure where Nigel actually went wrong. He just played it probably a bit too passively heading into the end game, and allowed black to achieve Zugzwang and just get his king into a better position than white's was. A disappointing end to the Olympiad for Nigel, but that was his first experience at the Olympiad, so it would stand him in good stead. I'll be back with more games, starting with the Brighton Zonal, which was the first stage of the World Championship qualifying, and it was the famous Brighton national tournament that was played every year in England. But this year they made it a zonal, so it gave Nigel a chance to qualify for the interzonal tournaments. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the game, and until next time, bye for now. Cheers.